what they say? A lot of things happened since Oscar Wilde finished writing The Picture of Dorian Gray. Of course, other than his arrest, death, and other things and other punishments. Well, all I'm going to say is that possibly Oscar Wilde made a masterpiece. And that's all I can say right now. So how about we dive into today's episode of Hunter and John? And yeah, thank you for making a new channel. Discuss some names in the comments below. Requirement has to have at least Sean in it. Try to think of some channel names for another channel too. That's your challenge today in the comments below. See you soon in the comments below. Let's get started today's video. The whole book of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray is about this guy named Dorian Gray who has his portrait drawn by a guy named Basil, and then he meets this guy named Lord Henry while his portrait was being drawn, and then Lord Henry starts having a big influence on Dorian's life. He like, I'm gonna influence this guy. Let's see, how am I gonna influence this guy next? And decides his next moves, and then one time he even gave him the yellow book. A book in yellow, which back then mainly French books were covered in yellow covering, so it's possibly and most likely a French book. And all that I can say right now is that Dorian Gray has a bad influence, is being influenced badly, and now he's getting corrupted. And once the portrait was finished, he actually wished that this painting would grow old instead of him, and that he'll look young and sweet forever. He would even sell his soul for it. And that's a terrible idea, to be honest. Your soul is what makes you. It doesn't matter if you're an old man, or you're an old woman, or you're an extremely old grandpa, great-grandpa. It doesn't matter who you are, but if you have a good soul, you could probably make a great reputation. Looks aren't everything, and back then society actually thought that looks were everything. If you look good, then you're a good person. If you look bad, like as if you have a tree as an arm instead, you're a bad person, and you deserve that. It's not much of a thing, and all I can say right now is that Dorian Gray is one of the victims of this. Dorian Gray is being influenced too much, that so much has happened, and eventually, once the yellow book comes in hand, and he becomes so corrupted that he even starts murdering and ruining the lives of other people that he tries to make relationships with. In fact, he even tries to have a man-to-man relationship, which is exactly what Oscar Wilde did too. These are just some parallels to Oscar Wilde and his own little story. Oscar Wilde was also technically considered a homosexual, as he was also dating a man, at least according to all the sources I have. And Dorian Gray, well, he never officially dated a man, because back then the law was against it. He never even did it secretly. At least if he did, it wasn't written in the book. But he did have some romantic relationships with some boys. I mean, he almost got married with a woman who was an actress, and that wasn't uncommon back then. All I can say right now is that Dorian Gray did such a good job. Now let's talk about a few themes that I've actually discussed in the past video, but shouldn't have been discussed then, so probably this video will be cut short. Life and art, we've already discussed that, but I want to add something onto it. Life is valuable, so don't waste it. I probably said this in the previous video, but looks aren't everything, and I've already said it before. So you know the drill, looks aren't everything, so don't try to be the most perfect person you ever know. No, one time I actually tried to be a perfect person and bragged that I knew everything. Almost everything. Well, turns out I did know almost everything. I forgot some things I did know. That was a whopper. All I can say right now is that I still have a long way to go. I'm probably going to discuss some things and then use a lot of things. Dorian Gray is kind of a representation of man's love and man's beauty. Speaking of man's beauty, let's discuss that next. Man's beauty is something that could probably also be said to a woman's beauty. Women and men, usually that's considered a good sign. However, men and men dating, women and women dating, like, I don't know, how do you call them? What's the word? Gays, I guess you could call them. those people back then were considered bad people and that they should be punished, even if it's the harshest punishment of all. Sometimes it was even death, sometimes it was prison, sometimes it was even prison and then execution. Kind of a bummer, to be honest. Dorian Gray thus explores the homosexuality, and originally the editors themselves tried to censor some things, but they weren't able to block the publication, but they were able to delete a few lines and a few chapters themselves without the permission of the author himself, so that they could tone down the homosexuality, which was really, 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 really illegal back then. And that's all I can say. And then when Oscar Wilde found out, he decided that he would add 6 more chapters to the whole book so that he could at least do a lot of great things with it. Well, not do a great thing, but at least continue the story so that it's not where he originally wanted to end. So he originally had 14 chapters, and then after he realized his editors deleted a few lines, at least not a few lines, a lot of lines, he added 6 more chapters. And that's really interesting, to be honest. I wonder what the first edition was like. I mean, the book that we're most permanently encased in our mind is the second edition. Oscar Wilde is a good author, I'll have to admit, but is he that good? I'm not sure about that. You can't argue with that. But all I can say right now, and the only thing I can promise right now, is that Dorian Gray, when he killed himself, he got back and took in all the sins that he have ever taken. And when he realized something that none of us could actually ever realize, the meaning of having a soul, or at least be heartful, this way so many things have happened that maybe some rules should have changed. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Time for clips. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. No note. Peace.